You are listening to the Ben Mulroney Show on this Thursday, May 29th. You may also, up until very recently, you were only listening to it, but now you can watch it on YouTube. Just search up Ben Mulroney Show or the Ben Mulroney Show, and you'll find content that we post all day long. Thank you so much for joining us. Someone that you were able to see in question period for the very first time ever yesterday was newly elected Prime Minister Mark Carney, fielding questions for the very first time. And I have to say, he looked at ease. He looked comfortable. He looked confident. He sounded as much as well. And it didn't take long for for the Conservatives to remind the Prime Minister that it is a confrontational moment, question period. You're held to account. You're asked tough questions, and you're expected to answer those questions. To be fair, if we're being honest here, I didn't hear a lot of direct answers to direct questions. There was some pivoting, but it was the first day. Like I said, I am not looking to criticize for the sake of criticizing, right? So let's listen to some of these exchanges, and then we'll talk about them on the other side. Here is Andrew Scheer, who for the moment is the acting leader of the Conservative Party in the House of Commons, as Pierre Poilievre is on the outside awaiting a by-election that would hopefully for him see him returning to the fold as the leader within Parliament. But here's Andrew Scheer asking Mark Carney what's going to happen to the numbers of this new government, given the fact that the retaliatory tariffs that were supposed to be implemented are going to blow essentially a $20 billion hole in those projections.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to welcome the Prime Minister to his first official question period. This is where democracy lives, and this is where we provide rigorous scrutiny on every word he says and every dollar he spends on behalf of Canadians. Now, let's talk about those words and dollars. During the election campaign, it was elbows up as he put retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. Then secretly, he dropped those tariffs to effectively zero. But he didn't stop there. He told Canadians that the government would collect $20 billion in revenue from those tariffs and use it to cost his platform. Now that those tariffs are going to bring in $0, two quick questions. Why wasn't he honest with Canadians during the election? And how is he going to make up the shortfall? Is he going to borrow it, print it, or tax it?
Fair question. Fair question. Here's his non-answer answer.
Our tariffs have maximum impact on the United States, minimum impact on Canada, and we're dedicating all the revenues from those tariffs to supporting the workers and businesses affected by the unjustified American actions.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, except they don't exist anymore. They were taken off in the middle of the campaign. So I don't get how you can stand there with a straight face saying they are going to cause maximum damage when they don't exist. They are vapor. They are an echo of the past. Here was Andrew Scheer's commentary following that non-answer answer.
Well, he didn't take long to pick up old Liberal habits of not being able to answer questions. But since the election, Canadians have been inundated with grand rhetoric and pretty speeches from this Liberal Party, but they are still suffering under all those policies. Household debt up at record levels. Number of people who can't pay their mortgages increasing. Food bank use continuing to rise. Now TD Bank is forecasting a recession with hundreds of thousands of lost jobs. The PM said undoing the damage of the last 10 years would require great speed, but he's not going to table a budget for 6 months. If he's the man with the plan and the guy you hire in a crisis, why won't he table a budget before he goes on summer vacation?
And that is actually a very good point. This is supposed to be a crisis, and I have no idea why this government hasn't decided to sit during the summer, if it's really that important, honestly. And it's good faith question I ask. You know, that was one thing that Pierre Poilievre promised had he been elected. He even said, he's like, I'm going to tell every member of parliament, cancel your summer plans because we have work to do. So to me, it's another one of those things like when Justin Trudeau claimed that the last election was the most consequential of our lifetime. We've heard that before. And then as soon as he got the same mandate he had prior to the election, the House didn't sit for something like 6 weeks. So, you can't call it a crisis and then behave like it's business as usual. Here was Mark Carney touting the one Canadian economy.
Mr. Speaker, I understand the member of the opposition is very busy. didn't have a chance to study closely the 100-day plan of the former member from Ottawa, Carleton, which did not include a budget. Our plan includes legislating. Our plan includes legislating for one Canadian economy and nation-building projects immediately to grow this economy, and we expect the support from all in this House.
I mean, he's got the snark. He's got the edge that's required to be in the House of Commons. The former member referencing Pierre Poilievre, and I'm sure you didn't read the document. I mean, I think that's going to wear thin on certain people. He is the smartest guy in the room, but reminding us that he is going to be the thing, I think, that hurts him with a certain type of person at some point. We're nowhere close to that day yet, but I think it's going to come. And once you ring that bell, it's hard to unring that bell. And look, say what you will about Justin Trudeau, but he started a tradition of answering every question that was posed to him. To the point, I think, on Wednesdays in question period, he would answer as many as 39 questions. And yesterday, the Prime Minister answered 8 questions and then started pawning off questions that were directed at him to his cabinet, which, by the way, there's a logic there. He wants his cabinet to feel empowered. So having them answer more questions, I'm fine with. Not every question has to be answered by the Prime Minister, at least not now. And here is new Energy Minister Tim Hodgson, when he was asked by Conservative Shannon Stubbs if the government will repeal Bill C-69, that's the No New Pipelines bill, as well as the production cap, so that they can get pipelines built.
Canadians shouldn't focus on pipelines. We'll tell that straight to the hundreds of thousands of workers who lost their jobs when these Liberals killed pipelines, LNG exports to allies, and capped Canadian oil and gas. Last year, 98% of Canadian crude went to the U.S., Canada's biggest customer and competitor, due to these Liberals. But in April, the PM said he won't repeal their No New Pipelines, Never Build Anything unlawful Bill C-69 and ignores premiers and businesses. When will he repeal Bill C-69?
Prime Minister has been clear. Yes, we will support new pipelines if there is consensus in Canada for them. With American tariffs threatening our economy and threatening our sovereignty, we must protect our energy security. There is no question energy is Canada's power. It will help us build the strongest economy in the G7, guide the world in the right direction, and help us be strong at the negotiating table. We will win this trade war. We will make Canada an energy superpower.
Okay, pay very close attention to what he said there, because this has been repeated before. Mark Carney has said this many times. He is in support of pipelines if there is a consensus to build them. What does that mean? If there are any Conservative MPs who hear this radio show or are listening, or staffers for those MPs, it is my humble recommendation that at the next available opportunity at question period, the question must be posed to Mark Carney. What do you mean by if a consensus to build one is there? Define that for me, please. And if a consensus does not exist, do you commit today in this House that you will champion and lead the effort to create and find that consensus? Because what that sounds like to me is a big, giant loophole. It's a get out of pipelines free card that they are holding on to. Well, of course we want to build a pipeline, but there's no consensus for one. So what are we going to do? Can't build one if there's no consensus. I need to know what that means, because I've heard it too many times now to think that it is anything but a hedge. And I think Canadians deserve to know where this government stands on an issue of national importance, like building pipelines to get our resources to Tidewater and fulfill the promise that is this incredible country. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're talking about Donald Trump's big setback on the tariff front. Don't go anywhere. This is the Ben Mulroney Show. You are listening to the Ben Mulroney Show, and because of that, I say thank you, I say welcome, and I say let's build this show together. Lots of stories with economic angles that are affecting so many Canadians for so many different reasons. So let's break a lot of them down now with a great friend of the show, somebody who really doesn't need a reason to give us his opinion, but I'm going to elicit it in this next segment. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Eric Kam, economics professor at Toronto Metropolitan University. Eric, thanks so much for joining us.
Benedict, it is always an honor, and good morning from Denver, Colorado.
I can tell. I can see the mountains in the background. And looks like a very comfy hotel room. I hope you're getting a good night's sleep.
The hospitality is wonderful, and just for you, I made the bed.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the Canada Post putting forth its final offers to the union. And this is with the backdrop of them posting a $1.3 billion operating loss last year. This is the house is on fire, and I mean, I don't know what to make of this. What's your take on the health and long-term longevity of Canada Post?
I can't believe the stupidity on both sides, Ben. First of all, on the part of the union, unless they're completely out to lunch or living under a rock, they know that their jobs, their livelihood are in jeopardy. And whoever runs Canada Post should really understand that by now this is a dead, not outdated, a dead business model.
Wait, so you don't think that there's a future for some version of Canada Post with a smaller footprint, a smaller workforce, pared back hours, pared back delivery dates? You don't think that there's a future for them somehow?
I think if you were running them and you had those ideas, then possibly. But the problem is I see no flexibility and no nimbleness or willingness to change. Listen, there's two things that they're not responsible for. There is a massive decline in letter mail, and there is huge rising parcel competition. That's not their fault. But their high operational costs are brutal. The customer experience is terrible. Government constraints on them, like most government constraints, are bad. And so if you wanted to present me with some model that shows that it could work with, say, weekly mail service or restricting mail service to northern communities that may not have Wi-Fi like we do, maybe. But as it stands right now, it is a dead company walking.
All right, let's move on to some data that just came out. You know, we heard a lot, especially Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives for years. They were talking about choices that Canadians had to make. They had to pick between paying their rent or buying gas, feeding their kids, or paying their mortgage. And now Equifax has said that 1.4 million Canadians missed credit card payments in the first quarter of 2025. So those choices are affecting people's credit rating at this point.
People's credit rating and their livelihood. I mean, we've been saying for years, people really haven't been listening, that the average savings rate in Canada is 0.
Yeah.
And so this is a real forecast that the average savings rate is only going down, not up. And this is really a very bad foreshadow for what's coming next, Ben, because all that increasing debt levels in this country have done is they are going to positively predict bankruptcies, personal insolvencies, people who have to walk away from their homes. This is really, really bad. And this is, as we were talking last week, along with the unemployment rate, if you look at the debt equity ratio just on houses, when those two statistics, when the bottom falls out of those two statistics, it doesn't matter if you think you're headed toward a recession, Ben, you're in a recession.
Yeah. Now, this to me should be an alarm bell going off somewhere in Ottawa to let people know, like, these are the bad indicators that precede something worse.
Well, that's right. And that's why they're called leading variables, because when we see these go poor, we know that everything's going poor. And this is just, more and more mounting evidence, Ben. Like, what does it take for the people in Ottawa to realize that a capitalist economy is only solvent when it grows? And our economy hasn't grown in years, not months, years. And yet they keep running like a football game, the same play over and over again. They drop interest rates. That does nothing for housing affordability. That makes the debt crisis worse. That makes almost every crisis worse, unless you're wealthy and you're borrowing money. But wealthy people don't really have to worry at most times. So they keep coming up with one solution that makes the problems we have today worse. And I wish people would wake up and see what's going on.
If there's one pet peeve I have about government is when they insist on calling every aspect of spending an investment. And not every time you spend money is an investment. However, CIBC is reporting that Mark Carney's defense spending plan is actually an investment. If it's done properly, it could have a knock-on effect of up to $46 billion to the economy. What's your take?
Well, you're right. Consumption is not investment, and investment is not consumption. And as we pointed out, the only growth in our economy has been playing around with the business cycle to make sure that spending stays at a significant level due to interest rates. But that's not your question. The question is investing in the military going to stimulate an economy? And the answer is, like all spending, it can in the short run. But if it's not followed by some growth, then it's just going to do what all spending does and become inflationary in the long run. So, the PM can try to impress you with, I'm going to spend here and I'm going to spend there. But, the Prime Minister's spending is no different than a household spending. You can stimulate spending easily, right? Because the government has a Visa card or a MasterCard that doesn't have a credit limit. So they can spend and spend and spend. But is it going to do anything then increase the business cycle? No. And of course, it's going to increase the payments on the debt at the outer end. So a little bit like they tried to use immigration as a growth strategy and it failed. If they're going to use military spending as a growth strategy, it's going to fail.
Well, but so long as, it depends on what they want to invest in. If all they're doing is going to, say, the UK or France to buy military equipment, then that you're outlaying cash. But if the goal is to invest in building military procurement ability here in Canada, well, then there's all sorts of knock-on effects that can come from that. Then there's the entire towns that could be built around something like that. So I do see a pathway for this to be sort of a new engine to an entire sector of the economy. But it depends on how they do it and how they pay for it.
Well, you're right. And so what you're talking about in a broad stroke is saying, shouldn't we start to stimulate the supply side of our economy through efficiencies, through research and development, through investment spending, through foreign investment spending, and trying to increase levels of competition in our country to increase output per worker? So you're 1,000% right. I agree. But is there a propensity to do that in Ottawa today? I've seen nothing over the last 9.5 years. And frankly, I don't expect anything else for the next 9.5 months, Ben.
Donald Trump has not had a very good a day between his tariffs, being told he doesn't have the power to levy tariffs. And then he was told that he has a new nickname, or there's a new type of trade called taco trade that stands for Trump always chickens out. Let's listen.
Mr. President, Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
I kick out?
Chicken out.
Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? And
I think it's deliberately antagonistic of a man you probably don't want to antagonize. But is there truth in this nickname?
Yeah, and I have to say, I don't know if he's making America great again as I sit here, but he sure is making comedy great again. Well, okay, so here's what's going on, which is, I don't care what anybody says. I don't believe that Donald J. Trump is an idiot. And I think he has also pretty smart people around him. And he knows that what he did was put on a power play that he probably figured would gain him some economic and political capital. Well, I don't know if it gained him political capital, but it didn't gain him economic capital because, as any textbook will tell you, the more you increase tariffs, which are just a tax, it's going to decrease your economic output. So he either found out the hard way or he knew all along that what he was doing was going to slow down his economy. So, this is not the man you want to pee off, Ben. So I don't like to throw titles at him, but I think what he's done is updated his economic expectations. And he has said, I better go back to the playbook because this isn't working. And even my most safe market, my bond market, is tanking. So I'd like to think that he just woke up and said, you know what? Play A didn't work. Let's go to plan B.
All right, my friend. Listen, I appreciate it. Have a great time out west. Enjoy the fresh Colorado air, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for watching the show. Now, if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of The Ben Mulroney Show.